I am your host, Danielle Mims. Welcome to Think Like a Kid, the podcast that helps parents and teachers stop guessing and start teaching the way kids actually learn. After working with hundreds of kids, I can promise you this: one size fits all learning doesn't work. It's time to stop making kids fit the system and start shaping learning around the child. Each week, you'll get quick wins, creative ideas, and brain-based strategies to make learning hands-on and fun again. So whether you're in the classroom, the car, or halfway through your coffee, I am so glad you're here. Let's think like a kid.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Think Like a Kid. Today's episode is something that is very near and dear to my heart, which is the foundation of anything that I have ever taught or do with my own children, and it's called social emotional learning. You might have heard of this as SEL or, something required in schools now. It's super trendy, I will say. But when I first started teaching, nobody knew about it. It was something I was doing before it like had a name. And it's really just focusing on the child as a whole and focusing on their own regulation and connecting with them on an emotional level and making sure that they're actually ready to learn, right? Because we can't just, we can teach the most amazing lesson led by the most amazing teacher, or, it could just be the coolest thing ever. And if a kid is not regulated or if their emotional needs are not met, it's not going to land. Doesn't matter how good it is, it's just not going to stick. But when you put social emotional learning first before anything, that's when learning's going to stick. And I always was like thinking, "Oh, I wonder if what I'm doing is actually going to make a difference." Because when you're a teacher, you don't know. You just kind of like teach your heart out and hope that something sticks with kids. But now that I have students who, have graduated college and have reached out to me, they're not like, "Mrs. Mims, you did the best social studies lesson." No, they don't say that. They say things like, "Thanks for believing in me. Thanks for letting me talk about my feelings. Thanks for caring about who I was." Those are the things that they reach out for. So I'll to kind of take you back to my early teaching days. I try to not give too much away with my story so that I'm not like calling people out, but I've been through quite the journey with my teaching background. So this one it's an interesting story because I kind of was like shamed for doing social emotional learning in the classroom. And a parent actually went to the principal complaining about me wasting instructional time in the classroom. Their child's too old to be talking about their feelings. And my principal told me to stop because parents pretty much rule, especially if like a principal doesn't have a backbone, which a lot of them don't. Just kidding, but not really. So I was told to stick to the plan, stick to the PowerPoint, stick to whatever I was supposed to be teaching in that moment. At first I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Oh my gosh, I was totally a people pleaser." And then I was like, "Absolutely not." Like my students are going to learn anything from me if I take that away. So I had to get creative with it. Every single morning, every year I've ever taught, my students would be greeted by name, s- eye contact, like totally feeling like they belong there. Every single child. And then once the school day started and I took attendance and all of that, we would do a check in and they would just fill out a piece of paper. Some of the districts that I've worked in, the kids had their own Chromebooks and iPads. So I was able to do like a Google form for them. And they did a morning check in and I just wanted to know their baseline, like what were they feeling today? And I had a ton of emotions and I also had room for them to write. How are they feeling? And then I said something that you want Mrs. Mims to know is blank. And they, sometimes they were like, "I lost a tooth last night," which was so cool because I could connect with them on a personal level. And then, someone says, "Oh, my dad had to go travel to a different country." Or, I found out that just tragic things have happened to students all because of my check in form. And I would have never known that if I didn't ask, right? And if you just ask, like, the generic, "Hey, how are you doing today?" A kid's not gonna tell you. Most adults don't tell you. Everybody just says, "Oh, yeah, I'm good." But you give them an opportunity that's discreet and in private and a way for them to reflect, that's when you're gonna be able to connect with them. And I it was a game changer. I was able to connect with my students so deeply where they felt so loved and they trusted me and we had that mutual respect. I did never demand respect. It was always mutual. And I was able to handle every day as the cards were dealt. It wasn't like, oh, come into my classroom and you're going to learn exactly what I have planned for you. Like, if you're a teacher, you know that lesson plans never go according to plan. And if you're a good teacher, you don't ever try to stick to the lesson plan. If it's not going that way, you have to pivot. And social emotional learning is the number one thing that you should always do before you're teaching your own child or you're teaching someone else's child, and that's connecting with them on an emotional level. Another thing that you can do, whether you are an educator or, you're doing homeschool or, you have just a couple of kids at home and that you're trying to teach, you can do a morning meeting. I always did morning meetings in the beginning of the day and closing circles. Morning meetings are basically like a fun way to greet each other. You could do a would you rather, like, would you rather eat a cheeseburger or would you rather eat a hot dog? Like something so simple and you can get really silly with it. And then I just either read a book that is related to emotional regulation or one of the skills like bravery or confidence or anxiety, where kids will connect with the book and then we can have a little conversation after. That's how simple it is. It's really just giving them an opportunity for them to see themselves in like a book or a situation or to reflect on what someone else is doing. And that's all it really is, but it helps kids open up. That's the foundation of it all. And if you think that you can just teach a kid without having that, then it's wasted time. And luckily, I found that out early on. And then as I continued to teach, second step was a big initiative. And that meant that the social worker would come in for, 20 minutes once a week to teach social emotional learning to the whole classroom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for years. And yeah, a kid wants you to read out of a binder in a lecture format, yeah, go right ahead. I'm still gonna keep doing what I was doing, and I will tell you that I I never cared about test scores even though, teachers were, like, praised for high test scores. I cared about growth scores, right? Like, if my students, whatever level they were at, if I could get them to grow. And growing emotionally too, that's hard to measure, but it's still there. And you can document it, you can feel it, they can feel it. And I encourage you to incorporate that into your everyday life with your own children or your own students. So I wrote down a couple of phrases that you could even just start with your own children or your own students that you can do today. So lead with connection instead of just instruction. So you could choose even just one. It might sound like, that looks really frustrating. Another one is, I can tell something's off today. Do you feel that too? Another one is, do you want me to sit with you for a second before we start, or do you want to be alone? And then another one is, you don't have to be okay right now. Right. So we're not trying to fix things. We're not trying to change a child. There's no lesson, there's no follow up questions and learning and lectures. It's just name what you see and stay present with your kid or your students. Like after that moment of connection, notice what happens with kids. Do they open up? Maybe, maybe not, but they might soften a little bit. That's a win. Do they engage faster? That's another win. And do they take a risk that they normally wouldn't do? There's so many different wins that you have to look for instead of just looking for the one that you're expecting out of them. Because when you really get to their level, just something as simple as softening up or having a new perspective or able to listen to something without closing their ears and screaming, that's progress. That's a win. And that's social emotional learning. It is it is everything. when it comes to learning. It's everything when it comes to thinking like a kid, is getting on their level, understanding where they're coming from. You've got this. I'm excited for you to try one of these out. Connection is not lost instructional time. It is absolutely the whole instruction. All right. I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Think Like a Kid. If this episode gave you an idea, a reframe, or a little win, the best way to say thank you is to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It helps more parents and teachers find these conversations, and honestly, it means the world to me. Until next time, friend, keep meeting kids where they're at and keep thinking like a kid.